Hello and welcome back to the Kind Regards podcast, hosted by yours truly, Zamiwe Mwape. After a brief hiatus, we are back with a fresh new look and even more inspiring content tailored just for you, while staying true to our mission of candidly discussing life at the intersection of career through authentic reflections, storytelling, and conversations with exceptional yet relatable people. Whether you're a long-time listener or joining us for the first time, I am absolutely thrilled to have you with us as we embark on this journey of growth and learning, with a few chuckles along the way to give you a softer landing every Monday as you return to Kind Regards. Speaking of Mondays, we are kicking off the week with a guest who is truly a multi-hyphenate woman. Not only has she had a successful career spanning over 20 years in tech, she is a 3-time TEDx speaker, an executive coach in the making, and a personal trainer. To top it all off, she's taken on the ever so challenging Spartan race multiple times. Joining us for this 2-part series is Priscilla Chomba-Kinywa, the Chief Technology Officer at Greenpeace International, which is a leading organization in environmental activism. In this segment of our discussion, Priscilla shares her career journey, highlighting the role that innovation and audacity have played in her success. We're talking outrightly inviting herself to meetings here, and the importance of leveraging our unique perspectives as the superpowers we bring to the table. We also discuss why she passionately advocates for equitable access to the internet for all, regardless of socioeconomic status. Priscilla, thank you for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
So to kick off, we're going to start with some icebreakers.
This is my most scary part of this show because I listened to all the episodes of this podcast in preparation for this, and this is the most scary part because I have no idea what you throw at me. But go for it. Let's do it.
They're nice and friendly. Okay. What words do you live by?
Joy, kindness, integrity. I think those 3
I love that.
would be the top ones.
Beautiful. I actually see the joy. You always look happy. What is something you've recently learned about yourself?
I've been doing a lot of learning about myself. So I think the one that's a bit of a difficult one for me to work around is the fact that as a kid, I was very introverted, very shy, very quiet. And then at some point, I realized the world is not kind to quiet people, generally, especially if you're like ambitious, career driven. I will tell you, the world is not very kind in that regard. You have to put yourself out there. People have to sort of know what you're up to. So I created this very outgoing persona, and I can work a room and I can get what I want from anywhere. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that's very exhausting. So what tends to happen is I'll go out, do all the big things, but then I have to withdraw and really spend time recharging. And so one of the things that I've been learning about myself is just how to say no to some things. Because when you create that persona, it takes on so much that you almost feel like you're disappointing people if you don't show up to that party that you really don't want to go to. Like you're disappointing people if you don't bring your biggest self to whatever forum you're supposed to be in. But yeah, I'm learning to say no to a lot of things, including things that could be what you'd term beneficial career-wise. So for example, this year, I was supposed to speak at a very big conference in May. I just had to say no because I didn't have the social bandwidth for it. Next week, I'm supposed to have been speaking at another big conference that I absolutely love in Amsterdam, but it's such a big conference that it would have taken so much from me. I just didn't have what it took. And so I turned that down as well because I knew if I do these 2 events, then it takes away from a lot of other things that I have to do because then I have to be recharging. So that's one thing I'm learning, saying no to things that ideally I'm excited about, ideally I want to do, but I know the cost will be too high.
I can definitely understand that. It's a matter of preserving yourself and keeping some parts of yourself for yourself and for the things that matters. And I love that you brought that up because your public speaking is something that I want us to touch on.
Yes, but I want to add something to what I just said, that I'm also speaking from a place of privilege because I've gotten to a place where I can say no to TNW saying, come and speak at our conference. That's not something I could have done some years ago. So I just need to be clear to the listeners that I'm speaking from a place of privilege. There was a time where I would have sacrificed because at the time, the cost of not going would have been higher than the cost of my well-being. But now it's vice versa. The cost of my well-being is far more important where I am in life.
Basically, you've earned your way to that point of privilege. So I love that. We know you're a fitness person.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what your least favorite workout is.
Least favorite? It's everybody's least favorite workout.
Burpees?
No, I love burpees. I love burpees because I run Spartan races, and the penalty for anything you don't manage to do in a Spartan is 30 burpees. So I had to learn to love burpees just so that I can survive the races. But I do dislike Bulgarian split squats. Those things are horrible. Very cliche, but I stand by that one.
Fair enough. And lastly, if your life were a movie or music, what genre would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. I can't think of one genre. And I think you know this. I am a techie. I am a certified fitness instructor. I am studying to be an executive coach. I am a wife. I am a mother. I do so many things that I can't think of one genre. And even my music taste is exactly like that. It's eclectic. Like 1 minute I'll be listening to Sheffy, and then the next song on my playlist will be Andrea Bocelli. I can't think of a single genre. I can't think of a single movie.
It sounds like it would be more of a documentary that's covering various aspects.
Possible.
Okay, cool. So let's get into it. I like to start the episodes with this question because the podcast is about life and career and everything in between. So who is Priscilla, the person and the professional?
Interesting. Really just a fun-loving person, born in the small town of Samfya in Rwapula province of Zambia. Grew up traveling a lot because my dad was a teacher, so he got transferred a lot. So a very not necessarily attached to any place person. That's sort of how I see myself. I can live anywhere, anytime. I have my preferences, obviously, but I love to travel. I love to do adventurous things. I like to challenge stereotypes, make sure those things that everybody thinks you shouldn't do because of who or where you come from, those are the things I want to do. The only thing I failed at was skiing. My black self failed at that miserably. I tried, but it was very hard. But that's who I am as a person, is basically just somebody who loves life. I love life. I love stories. I love listening to stories. I love telling stories. As a professional, I am, like I said, I'm a techie, but not really your geekiest of techies anymore. So really love everything that has to do with how technology can solve day-to-day problems. So a lot of my work, and right now I'm at senior executive level, so a lot of my work is strategy. But really what I look at is what are the problems in the world and how can technology help us to solve them? So very, very practical things. When I worked, for example, in the UN system, it was thinking through how can we use SMS that a lot of young people have access to give them sexual reproductive health rights information. How can we connect them to each other? How can we connect them to trained counselors to get the right information? Because, in Zambia, for example, you can't really go to the clinic and ask for condoms or advice because the person in the clinic might be your mom's best friend from church choir or something. So really thinking through what are the challenges we're seeing in the real world? How can technology help to solve that? That's sort of who I am as a professional. And yeah, really just having gone through everything you can think of in terms of being a tech person, starting off from like IT assistant, being that person that's pulling cables, putting solar panels on roofs.
Oh, wow.
If somebody can't print, back in the day when people didn't know how to do it, aligning page numbers in Word, believe it or not, that was a real thing at some point for people. So I was the person they would call, doing all the IT support, and then eventually just transitioning slowly and going up the ranks until now I'm at Chief Technology Officer level in a global organization, which is a lot less exciting, but a lot more interesting.
That's an interesting way to describe it. A lot less exciting, but a lot more interesting. So I think you have what I consider, and I've said this to you before, an aspirational career in that you have a lot of experience doing a lot of different things. Like you said, you've been in the trenches, hands-on, attaching solar panels, and now you're operating at a strategic level. How did you get to where you are? And I'm really interested in hearing the story behind all of this because I saw from your LinkedIn profile that you have worked in 75 countries across 6 continents. That's not a statistic you hear every day, so I'm really keen to hear about your career journey.
It's been long, so I will try and give you a version that fits into the podcast. So I've been working for the last 20-something years now. I wanted to be a lawyer growing up. I was a lawyer in my head. I used to watch those movies, see those women in those power suits, and I was like, that is me. So from the time I was 7 until I finished high school, that was my dream. But then when I finished high school, my dad was like, well, you can't just sleep in the house. I finished in 99. back then you had to wait until like October or something to go into university. So he was like, why don't you do something in between? What's your plan B? I was like, I have no plan B. I will be a lawyer. And he was like, everybody must have a plan B. And at the time, the boy I had a crush on, I hope he never listens to this podcast, had said he was studying computer science. So I said, computer science is my plan B, just to keep my dad quiet. And then he was like, yeah, well, everybody will need computer science, even lawyers. So I went, found a computers course, started, fell in love with it, and that was that. You asked how I got here. It was a combination of very many factors. First of all, a lot of determination, a lot of humility, but also a lot of blessings. So my first job, I met somebody who'd been my senior in high school, met him while I was in college, random. Meet somebody in town and they are bragging, as Zambian people tend to sometimes do. I've got my own IT company. You should come work for me when you finish. And I was like, oh, okay. And the day I wrote my last paper, Sunday, I went to his church because I knew the church he used to go to because he played some instrument in the choir. So I followed him and I said, hello. The choir always leave last, so I knew I'd run into him. So I sat there, waited. I'd gotten on 2 buses to get to that church, and I waited. And he came out, and I was like, "Hey, but do you remember me?" And he's like, kinda. I'm like, "You promised me a job. I'm done with school now." That was Sunday. I'd finished my last paper on Friday. And I could see the man looking at me like, I was just talking. I was like, yeah. When do I start? He's like, okay, come see me tomorrow. So he was running a small IT company out of his living room. The employees were me and his cousin. We used to cook shima in his kitchen, because that was kind of literally we're working in his living room. But what that did was he had small contracts with UN agencies that couldn't afford to hire people. So I used to go and set up equipment, that sort of thing. And what that did is in 2002, when there was a big drought in Zambia, I already knew the systems. So when the UN started recruiting, I understood their systems. I'd already been configuring and working on them. So that's how I got into the UN at 19. Not the easiest feat because everybody's trying to get into the UN. But because, like I said, I had the humility to say, I will work out of your living room in this small company selling antivirus on Cairo Road when antivirus came in boxes, I had the opportunity to then understand and be ahead of people who had far higher qualifications than me. But because I knew the system, I was able to ace the interview. And at this point, I didn't have a degree. I had a higher diploma in what was called information management systems or something. So I got into the UN. That was the World Food Program. Worked as IT assistant for 6 years. Loved it. Set up all the IT systems in the 9 provinces when there was that drought. It was a national emergency, kind of like where we are this year. And then 6 years later, I got an opportunity to interview for a role at UNICEF, which was still in IT support, but slightly more senior. So WFP had been IT assistant. UNICEF, I now became senior IT assistant. At this point, I basically could do IT with my eyes closed. And I say it so myself, but I was good. So then I sort of started sitting in the back of rooms with the program people. Program in the NGO world is kind of like the business, like the people who do the work in the field. So I'll just invite myself to meetings I'm not invited to, sit in the back. And then when I would hear them complain about stuff, I'd be like, wait. So you can't reach teenagers with sexual reproductive health information. Have you thought about meeting them via SMS because they're all on their phones? And it's like, oh, you're struggling to monitor how projects are going in the field. Have you thought of giving the chiefs tablets to report on how many pit latrines have been done in their communities? So I just started offering solutions until it got to a point where we were building these solutions. And so I was moved out of IT and into reporting to the executive director. Well, I think in UNICEF it was called the country representative. And the title changed from senior IT assistant to innovation lead. So I was now put in charge of innovation, which was amazing because it meant anything and everything. And I experimented. Best days of my life. I was hanging out at Google headquarters, and Facebook at the time was the place to be. So I practically would be in New York and San Francisco often. Loved it. But then after another 6 years, I decided all I'd known for 12 years was the UN. So I took a big risk and left, joined a small Danish NGO. But what that did, and that goes to your question of 75 countries, what taking that risk did is that it gave me access to now be global advisor on technology in Africa, Asia, and Middle East. Because it was such a small organization that actually hired, I think the role was something like technology manager. And I got the job and I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to be called technology manager. And my boss was like, what do you want to be called? I was like, global advisor on technology and innovation. And I was like, okay, as long as you don't sound like my boss when we walk into a room, call yourself whatever you want to be. I'm going into this level of detail because I'm hoping some of your listeners are younger, and I just want to demonstrate, ask for things. First of all, put yourself in the back of that room where you're not invited. Offer solutions, show your value. Secondly, learn to ask for things, because I asked for the title that looked nice on LinkedIn, and it was exactly what I was doing. And it also allowed to shape the role from just looking at IT into really thinking about innovation in these 22 countries that we're working in. When I did that job, the same person who'd hired me left and then recommended me to my next job, which was based in London. But all this time, I now moved to Kenya, so I was living in Kenya. So that role was now global head of digital and technology in 45 countries. See, we are moving. So we started with 22, now we moved to 45. And then 3 years later, this role came up and it was 55 countries. So when you add all the different countries, it's actually been 50, 70, close to 80 countries. So that has been the journey, and really just always taking a chance because I've had very good jobs. So it's not like I needed to leave, but really thinking about what do I want next? How do I challenge myself next? And interestingly, in 2015, I made a choice that I would not apply for jobs. As in literally, I just said this to a friend. I was like, I've stopped applying for jobs. People have to call me now. And that's exactly what happened. Putting things into the universe, because what that forced me to do was go and work on my LinkedIn to a point that people now, like this job was straight from LinkedIn, literally. Somebody reached out on LinkedIn.
Lovely.
Never seen me, didn't have a reference. I get a lot of that. But really just the choice to say I don't want to apply for jobs forced me to then clean up my LinkedIn so that the opportunities can come to me. So again, tip number maybe 3 for any young person there, just clean up your LinkedIn. I'm not going to ask you to post every week because that's too much work if it's not your thing, but let your LinkedIn profile represent what you stand for so that people can find you if that's what you're interested in.
I love talking to people who are audacious because I want to know where the hell they're getting their audacity from. So I'd like to gain an understanding of, because you had audacity quite early on in your career. What has been your mindset and what has driven that approach to you being audacious in the things that you do and how you do them, and also being innovative? Because we love the word innovation, but that requires being willing to have original ideas that have not been tested, meaning they could fail, meaning you have to have a certain level of appetite for risk and that you'll look bad. So I'd like to gain an understanding of your mindset, basically.
Very interesting question. I am anything but an overthinker. I have people in my life who overthink things, and I'm always fascinated. I'm like, how did you get to this level of thinking about this one small thing? Like literally, I finished my exam and I was like, that guy I met in town said he had an IT company. I didn't think about what happens if he says no. I didn't think about, will I even find him at church? I was like, listen, I'll get on that bus. If nothing else, I will have prayed if I don't find him. So I don't really overthink scenarios. I look at the outcome I'm looking for, and then I'm like, let's go. If we fail, we fail, but we'll have given it our best shot. That's another thing I want to emphasize. You have to give things your best shot, because then if you fail, you will know it's not because of you. It's not because of something you didn't do. And this is what I tell people. I'm like, if you have an interview, a job interview, give it everything. Prepare, study, research, look up the people on the panel, ask for names. I ask for names. I'm like, who's going to be on the interview? And then I'm like, oh, it's Zamiwa. Zamiwa is interested in hearing about startups. So what examples can I give her to show that I know things about startups? So for me, I think I have the audacity because I know I'm putting my best in. And if my best is not good enough, then it's not what was meant for me. So a lot of the things that I do, I'm like, what do I need to prepare? How do I put my best foot forward? And this is the thing that I think is invisible to a lot of people. I have a friend that wanted to transition careers. He's in architecture. He wanted to do communications or something. And he came to me and he was talking about this. And I was like, okay, so what have you done to prepare? And he was like, oh no. I was like, you can't just transition. He was like, well, you've been lucky because I'd moved from IT into innovation. I was like, hold on. It looks like I've been lucky from afar. But what you don't know is while I was in that IT position, every evening I was doing a course with an American organization called Tech Change. Nobody knew who they were, but they were doing courses on SMS for mobile, innovation this, innovation that. I didn't know where it would lead, but I knew I was tired of IT proper. like of pulling cables, keeping servers on. So I was like, what can I do that prepares me for the next thing? And so when the innovation lead opportunity came up, I was ready because I'd done the preparation work. And again, because I know I'm putting my best foot forward, the fear of failure for me is very, very minimal. And I think the other reason I really don't fear failure very much is because I'm not too concerned with what people think about me. I think that's usually the key. We are afraid of failure because we think, what will my bosses think? What will my family think? What will my friends think? So it's very easy to take risks when you don't care that people will think you failed. Because I know I haven't failed. I've learned that this was not the thing for me, or I could have done better there. But people saying, oh, she failed, now look, that's not something that makes me lose sleep.
I'm curious to hear whether the fact that you are a woman and an African woman in tech working in international spaces has had an impact on your career or your experience of your career.
I can never tell. One, because like I said, I try and be as good as I possibly can at the things I do. However, I can't discount the fact that being Black and being a woman, being in tech is a plus. So the Danish organization I worked with, the person that hired me was an American white man. And I used to joke with him because I'd be like, oh, I'm going to speak at this conference. And he'll be like, how? I've been trying to get into that conference for years. And I'd be like, listen, I'm Black, I'm female, I'm from Africa with an afro. You don't stand a chance as a white middle-aged American man. So we used to joke about that. So I can't discount the fact that for me, that has been a plus. I remember there was a mentoring session organized by Zicta for girls on ICT Day or something. And that was sort of my pitch. It was like, those things are your superpowers. The fact that you're young, the fact that you're Black, the fact that you're African. Don't let them be the things that hinder you because people think they should hinder you. Let them be your superpowers. Understand that everybody needs a young person's perspective, which is why at the time I was very young. Now we don't qualify anymore. But it's why I was able to be like, young people on SMS. The older people in the room didn't even think about the fact that you could use SMS to transfer knowledge, information, counseling. So the fact that you're young, there are perspectives that you bring that are very unique to you. The fact that you're Black in an international organization, there are things that you can challenge, things that you can help them with. And being African is just like the cherry on top because it's a perspective that very few people, even in my current organization, at my leadership level, have. So there are certain things that we're discussing and I'm like, hold on, that is so problematic. For XYZ reason. And I understand they're just speaking from their experience. So I don't discount the fact that being Black, being African, being a woman in tech has helped advance my career, but I also don't use it as the anchor. I use my expertise, my competence as the anchor. I need people to understand I am not the token, and people have called me a token hire, but I don't care.
Really?
Oh yes, to my face. I was like, wait, what's going on? But anyway, the fact that I know that I am not being hired simply because of what I look like really makes it easy to kind of just ignore those sorts of remarks. But yeah, I think it's a superpower. And I think anybody who's different brings a different perspective. And so if you lean into that, it becomes more of an advantage than a disadvantage.
I like what you've said about leading with your expertise. And therefore, if you know that actually this is what I bring to the table, even if someone calls you a token, it doesn't matter because you know you're actually adding value. So you've given a TED talk about equitable access to the internet, which I think is a very important aspect because the world is so technologically advanced. Every day we're hearing something new. And in that TED talk, you spoke about a girl named Chomba who's in a village somewhere and may not have the access that others do. Could you speak to why you feel that is important and the role that tech has solving the problems that we face, including for those people who are in remote areas, because they're just as important as the person who's in an urban area?
So that TED talk started off as a TEDx Lusaka talk and then ended up being picked by TED as a TED talk. I've given 3 TEDx talks for Lusaka. That was the easiest one for me because I felt so strongly about that topic. Because like I said in the talk, during the pandemic, I was watching my housekeeper scramble to send her kids to the village because there was nothing for them to do in the city and they were not learning. And I'm just like, hold on. My kids are upstairs, each in their room with a laptop and a tablet and I don't know what, with a very high-speed internet. Nairobi is great for internet, by the way. I'm not talking about Zambian internet. That leaves a lot to be desired. But I'm like, my kids who were already at an advantage just because of who they were born to, not because of anything they've worked for, are getting even further ahead. And this really hardworking lady, her kids are getting even further behind. And that just hurt. It hurt. It physically hurt. And for me, it's not just that divide that hurts. It's that we, the privileged, because internet is so ubiquitous for us. It's everywhere. It's like Google Maps. You can't go anywhere without it. You want to know what song it is, you press Shazam. You want to listen to a song, Spotify, Netflix. Because it's so much around us, we assume everybody else has it. But what we don't realize is those people that don't have it, the 3 billion that don't have it, them not having it is actually a disadvantage to us. Because like I said about being an African woman in the tech space, they have a perspective that we will never know if they are not in the spaces that we are. And now everybody's in digital spaces. They're not there. They can't give us their perspective. So we really lose out as humanity. For me, I'm like, those are the people that are missing out on debates around politics. When it's time for elections, all of us are on Twitter and Instagram and wherever else. These are people who are sitting in a corner with some politician showing up, pointing to a school that UNICEF set up saying, I built you that school, vote for me. So they then vote for the wrong person using the best knowledge that they have. And who loses out? All of us. Let's talk food security. Our people in what we call the villages know a lot more about how to keep themselves, how to sustain themselves, how to grow enough to feed their communities. We can't learn from them because they're isolated in some little corner and because we think we're better and because we can look up what's happening in, I don't know, the UK. The UK weather systems are very different. The patterns are different. Everything's different. Why are we not learning from indigenous knowledge? Because we're excluding them. So that's why I feel so strongly. I feel we're losing out if we are not engaging with everybody in the spaces that we engage in today. And of course, there are negatives to the internet. We know this. But I think in the long run, the payoff is far greater than the risks.
And just out of interest, one of the things you talk about is the internet should be free. I hope I'm not misquoting you on that. How would that work, like in the practical sense? Because someone has to pay for it. There are no free lunches.
Yes, but here's my strong belief. There is a lot of money. The world is not short of money. It's just not allocated appropriately. And in that talk, I gave an example of how the Microsofts, the Googles, the Facebooks, they're not paying tax in a lot of jurisdictions that they make money in. Why aren't we making them pay for that lunch? They have money. Their shareholders are making billions. Every year they announce their profits. It's just crazy. There's enough money. Clearly, you could reduce your dividend payouts by this much and you will give access to the people that don't have access. In every sense of the word, there's enough resources to go around. So when I say free internet, I don't mean free as in it just exists on its own. I mean, there have to be people that are paying for it, but there's more than enough money in the sector to pay for those that can't afford it. That's basically best.
I wanted to get your insights or to dig deeper into those topics because I can tell that these are things you're passionate about. So you work for Greenpeace, which is a company that is very vocal on issues around sustainability and equitable treatment of people, right? So from the outside looking in, it seems you've been able to align your personal values with those of the company you work for. And you found that sweet spot between passion, career, success, and impact. And that's not something a lot of us are able to achieve. And I'm keen to know, how did you manage that? I know it wasn't a happy accident because of how you've described your approach to your career.
I have been very blessed in that regard. Every single place I've worked for aligns with my values. If it doesn't, I don't do it. But I think that's also something I take very seriously when I'm considering a job. I look for two things. I look for the values of the organization and whether I can live with myself. And I look for who I will be reporting to, like who my line manager will be, because I think those are very important things. That said, I think it's just been a very deliberate, I don't look at the money first. I always ask myself, let's say I had enough money to survive. Would I do this job if I weren't being paid? And if my answer is yes, then I take it. If my answer is no, I don't take it. There are many jobs that have come. Recently, there was an offer on the table that was paid 3 times what this organization I'm with pays. Couldn't take it because I knew I'll be miserable. So for me, it's also, again, privilege, but it's also understanding what's important to you and what will help you sleep at night and what will maintain that joy that I was talking about. So I have been once in a place where my boss changed and the new one was just taking every shred of joy I had. And I made a decision that I would leave. Like literally my calculation was I can take a 50% pay cut if that's what it takes for me to get to a place of joy again. So for me, it's just being very deliberate about what are your non-negotiables. And this is with everything in life, whether it be a friendship, a job, whatever it is. If I see that it's becoming a business as usual, I step away. But yeah, I have been very lucky and blessed in that regard of being able to have the privilege of picking and choosing what jobs align with my values.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you found this episode insightful, be sure to share it with a friend, family member, or colleague you think would benefit from it. Also, be sure to join us next week for the second segment of our conversation, where we deep dive into how Priscilla prepares for public speaking engagements. How does she ensure she connects with her audience for impact in her messaging? How does she shake off the jitters before she goes on stage? She also shares her insights on what qualities to look for in a sponsor and how to get on their radar in the first place. We also explore navigating corporate life as an introvert and managing the ever-present office politics. It's a value-packed episode you won't want to miss. Be sure to follow the Kind Regards podcast on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook at the Kind Regards podcast. You can also connect with Priscilla at Priscilla Chomba-Kinywa on LinkedIn and at Coach Silla on Instagram. I wish you an amazing and expansive week ahead. Kind regards, Zamiwe.